Let's get into a discussion about job loss and what your financial priorities should be. The first few days after a job loss, whether you got laid off or fired, are crucial to your financial success and how much of a hardship it's really going to create. And one of the first things that you should do if you find yourself in that situation is stop any automated payments or deductions that were coming out of your bank account, whether it's savings, checking, whatever. Okay, you want to stop any bills that are auto drafting. You want to stop any subscription services that you've got. You want to stop any investments that you've got going on. And I realize that may be hard, but you want to get on the horn and make those calls the day you get canned, or the day you get let go, or the very next day, okay? You want to be proactive about that stuff. You don't want it coming back to hurt you later. And while you're doing this, you could check with customer service to see if by any chance you had income protection insurance. Now, I'm not a big fan of income protection insurance. I think that you should have an emergency fund and whatnot, but a lot of people don't, or they were in the midst of trying to get that set up when, life comes at them, things of that nature. So please check on that, see if by any chance you do. You might catch a break and be able to take advantage of that coverage. If so, that might give you some of the respite that you need in order to get everything else together. Now, I've recommended taking these two steps. The third step that I recommend, if you are paying student loans, you want to reach out to those servicers and you want to take advantage of any deferments or forbearances that you can on those student loans. That will help give you some breathing room as well. And it is pretty easy to do those. A lot of times, most of the servicers, just by sheer virtue of you calling in, can grant at least a 3-month deferment on your payments that would otherwise be due. That can be a huge deal for you. Now, I'm telling you all this stuff, obviously, we all assume that we can go right back out and find a new job, right? Or maybe we've got this friend, or whatever the case may be. It doesn't matter. There's going to be a delay in your income. Even if you ran right out the same day that you got laid off and get another job, there's going to be a disruption in your income. So take some steps and make things easier on yourself. You want to hope for the best, of course, but you want to prepare for the absolute worst, and that's what I'm trying to stress to you here. Now, this may seem odd, but your third priority after you've stopped auto drafts and after you've tried to see if you've got some sort of income protection insurance and whatnot is then filing for unemployment. Now, you still want to do it within a day or two of losing your job or getting canned, whatever the case was. And don't just assume that if you did get canned that you're automatically not going to get benefits. With the way things have been over the past 2 years, a lot of rules have been suspended, rewritten regarding that, okay? It used to be if you were fired for stealing, lying, or failing a drug test, then it was an automatic no. I don't know that is always the case anymore. The other thing is, if you were an independent contractor, the answer was pretty much no. But that too, the restrictions and rules may have changed over the past couple of years. So check in on that. Now, the reason that you want to jump on that as soon as possible is because when you file for unemployment insurance, if you've never done that before, and by the way, as an aside, do not let your pride get in the way. Do not be embarrassed about that. Many people have had to do it. It's a benefit that you actually pay for. So you might as well take advantage of it. And there's certainly no shame in doing it. Now, with unemployment benefits, you can end up being delayed 3 or 4 weeks before you even get your first check. Even if everything goes perfect and you do everything that you're absolutely supposed to. In some states, there's a waiting week, so you have to be without a job for a full-on week before things can kick in. And then, of course, you have to file your claim or report in each week. And if you don't do those steps, then you're going to set yourself further and further behind. Get with somebody maybe that's been through the process before. I'm going to link some information below this video on YouTube that may also be helpful, especially with that portion right there. An article to get you started, okay? Now, I had a friend a couple of years ago. He had worked most of his adult life, was in his, I would say, late 30s, and the company that he worked for went through a restructuring, and he got laid off. They were like, oh, we just, can't use you anymore. We're going to replace your job and everything else. And he's like, okay, but he didn't exactly understand the process, the bureaucracy, the rules, everything else. And so he was kind of shocked to find out that he has to go in, file every week. It's got to be in on time. There's no mulligans. There's no do-overs. There's no oopsie, I forgot. There's no... it's a pain in the butt to try and talk to somebody and get some exemption made. And for the most part, they just don't. And he did not realize that, and so he missed out on benefits. And that's a little personal story and aside, a word of caution that I want you to be ready for. If you do need to go and file for unemployment, be prepared to spend the better part of a day. Be prepared to have some documentation and whatnot with you. And for it to not exactly be a user-friendly process, you're going to have to be proactive. You're going to have to be asking questions and be willing to do legwork yourself if you want to get those benefits. Now, these are not going to keep you rich or to the lifestyle to which you were accustomed either. More often than not, unemployment benefits are only about half of what you were making at best, and it caps out after a while. There's a few factors that go into it. It's a bit more complicated than I want to get into right now for the purpose of this video, because there's a couple of other thoughts I want to share. Now, along with all these other things, something that you may easily overlook is the idea of health insurance. It's possible that your health insurance will still keep covering you for a short term after losing your job, but you will have to check on that. You can check through your HR person. You can call your benefits provider and get some details on that. You can continue health insurance coverage through Cobra if you need to for up to 18 months or more, but it is very expensive to do so. If you've got some sort of condition or whatever, then that might be worth considering there. I don't know. It's a case-by-case basis, and I hesitate to say, oh, don't bother. No, you'll have to make that judgment call for yourself as to whether or not that's a priority for you. Okay, and with that, you're going to want to reevaluate your budget big time. Okay, it goes without saying, but some people will live in denial for a week or two after they get laid off. They'll survive off of credit cards, things of that nature, and guys, you don't want to do that. You don't want to make your situation any worse than it already has to be. I've done a video on triaging late bills, and that would be very useful to you to go back and check that out, especially if you're currently perhaps facing this situation. There are certain folks that are somewhat lenient. There are other folks that will scream like hell but are a low priority, and it's useful to know which is which. Now, just as a quick review, the last thing that you should be late on, if you can help it at all, is your rent. Make sure that you keep your rent or your mortgage up as much as you can. There's some options. Remember, I told you to call your creditors, the people, and see what, if any, options you've got. There might be something there that'll help you out, especially with your rent. Utilities tend to be very forgiving, let's say. If you late, sometimes, especially if you know that it's a short-term thing, hey, I've got a job, but it's still going to be a couple of weeks before everything gets up and running, you could set up a payment plan for a lot of your utilities, especially water, electric, maybe even phone service. So something for you to consider. So rent absolutely should not be late on that, and obviously your car payment. They don't have to be very forgiving when it comes to your car, and they are not. If your car is part of if you have a secured loan as a car loan, then they can easily, if you're late by 2 months, as little as 2 months, they could come and snatch it up, and then your pain just got way worse. All right, guys, the last bit of advice that I want to give you, because I know I've already babbled for quite a bit, is if you can avoid it, do not liquidate your 401k or your IRA. You want to explore every other option first. I know it may seem tempting. Hey, I got 10 grand in my 401k. I'll just liquidate that and I'll be fine for a couple of months. No, what you don't understand is there is going to be taxes and penalties on that. And together they can be as much as 40%. So you might have thought you had 10, and they are held out before those funds are dispersed to you. If it's a protected account, a tax sheltered account like a 401k or a 403b. So you will be hit with taxes and penalties before you even see those funds, as much as up to 40%. So if you thought, hey, I'm getting a fat ass check for 10 grand, no, my friend, it's probably going to be around 6, and that's if you're lucky. And then come tax time, you're going to get hit again. It doesn't seem right. You say, hey, it's my money. Well, they were giving you certain tax advantages, and they want to discourage you from abusing those, and that's why those penalties are in place. All right, well, as always, guys, I'm sure you may have some more questions. This is something that you could hit me back with, and I would be happy to talk about or do a whole other video. There's a lot more that can be said, but this ought to get you started. The last thing I'll leave you with is don't lose hope. There's jobs out there. I know I've done some videos about problems with hiring systems and whatnot. Anything can be overcome. The key is information. But if you've got questions, hit me with it at fussyandfinance@gmail.com, or leave it in a comment below this video if you watch it on YouTube. If you're watching it here on Twitch, then you can still go to YouTube and catch the video there and still leave me your questions. Or you can hit me in the chat. Whenever I'm doing these videos, I keep my chat open and sitting